resume, I'm going to tell you a little story about me. Does anybody remember me? Wow, I'm shocked. I grew up in Pittsburgh, a little town outside of Pittsburgh called McKees Rocks. My father carried mail on his back, actually delivered mail to our house. He did that for 29 years. His father was a coal miner. Tough situation there. My mother, she's very, very smart and very opinionated, not shy like I am. And her mother lived with us kind of off and on, and she could barely speak English, immigrants. And so it was a blue-collar town. The wind blew the wrong way. People would find themselves out of work. It was a, kind of a tough circumstance. And but it was great. I got those basic values: God-fearing, common sense, respect your elders, and all the things that we know are critical values in our country. By the way, I'll give you just 5 of them right off the top. Personal responsibility, resilience, the ability to pick yourself up, teamwork, nothing gets done without a team, faith, which is an important part, and family. I mean, these are things that I learned as a kid, and they've stuck with me. Thank goodness. I left there to go to that small little school, Ohio State, and we have 2 towers that are located right outside Ohio Stadium, and they were filled when I went to school with all 18-year-old freshman boys and girls who had never been away from home. Both towers were that way in downtown. Cliff, they used to refer to them as Sodom and Gomorrah. And so there were some things that happened early on, and I wasn't very happy, and I tried to change the rules, because I'm kind of a change guy, I think after my mother. And I wasn't getting anywhere, so I asked for a meeting with the president of the university. Make a long story short, I went in to see him. He had a nice office and beautiful rugs and a beautiful table and a nice desk and green leather upholstered chairs. And he asked me what was on my mind, and so I told him, and I looked at him and I said, "Sir, I've been in school here about a month and I'm undecided. Maybe this is the job for me. It's really cool what you got going on here. And what exactly do you do?" So he tells me about his fundraising responsibilities, his academic responsibilities. And he says, "Tomorrow I'm going to go down and visit with President Nixon." And I said, "Well, sir, there's a number of things that I would like to talk to him about also." And he said, "No, you can't go." And I said, "Well, if I write a letter, would you give it to the president?" And he said, "Well, I guess I could do that." So I went to my dorm and I basically wrote a letter inviting myself to the White House. And a couple weeks later, I went down to my mailbox, and sure enough, there's a letter from the White House, the office of the president. I open it up, I go upstairs, and I call home, and my mother answers the phone. And I said, "Mom, I'm going to need an airline ticket. The President of the United States would like to have a meeting with me in the Oval Office." And my mother is shouting, "Honey, pick up the phone. There's something wrong with Johnny." So make a long story short, they give me an airline ticket. I fly down to Washington. I get inside the gate. I'm sitting right outside the Oval Office. And a guy walks up to me and he says, "You're going to get 5 minutes alone with the President of the United States." Now, I'm a first-quarter freshman and I'm 18 years old. 5 minutes alone with the President. What do you think? Yeah, how about you? Would be awesome, wouldn't it? Yeah. I'll tell you what I'm thinking. New jacket, new shirt, new tie, new pants. I didn't come here for 5 lousy minutes. So they opened up the door, and I walked in. Mr. President, John Kasich, President of the United States. I've never said this before, but I don't have any idea why I wasn't intimidated. I never have been. I think it's that McKees Rocks deal, and everybody's the same. You show respect, but no intimidation. So I sit down at his desk, and I spend 20 minutes with the President in the Oval Office. That's pretty good. The bad news is I spent 18 years in Congress, and if you add up all the time I spent in the Oval Office, I peaked out at the age of 18 and should have moved to Iowa and become an Iowan. So it's really an amazing story, and it's a story really in a way of the fact that my life, I've been struck by lightning many, many times. So you heard them say that I was elected to the state senate. I was 26. I had not a single relative that lived in Ohio. I can think of. And I just had this dream that I could do this, and I ran against an incumbent, and it was hard, but I went and recruited like normal people. I didn't rely on the Republican Party, I just recruited normal people. And I told them, you know, what I wanted to do, and I think I was like 24 and a half when I started this, and I think they kind of looked and said, you know, give the young man a chance. Well, I won, and then I went into the legislature, and in my third year, I wrote my own budget for the state. That was the first real lesson of what it means to write budgets and understand the workings of all of government. And then I lost my district because they took it away. They gerrymandered me out, and I ran for Congress in 1982. I was the only Republican in America to defeat an incumbent that year in 1982. And I ran on basically the Reagan platform. And Reagan at that point was extremely unpopular. We lost 26 House seats in the Congress, and I get elected. I'm 30 years old, and I'm driving to the headquarters, and my mom and dad are there, and my mother's like, Johnny, what are you doing? You know? And I'm thinking, this is just amazing. So for the first 6 years, I worked on the Defense Committee. And one of the first things that happened was I went out to this little air base, and I met with this colonel, and he was getting ready to leave. And before I left, I have no idea why I said this. I said, you know, Colonel, is there anything you'd like to tell me before I leave? And he pulled open the drawer of his desk, and he said, you see this hammer? What do you think this hammer costs? We use this hammer here. I don't know, what, a couple of bucks? $10,000. How about this wrench? I don't know, $1.25. Oh, no, $4,500. I mean, these high-priced military parts. So I took these things, and I went to Washington, and I met with a wonderful man. His name was Bill Nichols. He was a Democrat from Alabama. He'd had his leg blown off in a minefield in World War II. He was a wonderful guy, and I actually was privileged to do one of the eulogies when he died. But I went in, and he was a rock-ribbed supporter of everything in the Pentagon, and I was showing him this stuff. And I said, sir, this is like waste. We can't go along with this. And I remember I was sitting across from his desk, and he pulls his glasses out, and he's looking over the top of them, and he says, your mama don't have any more like you at home, does she? And so that started a career really as a military reformer. And I believe that everything has to be reformed and innovated in the government. And I was there for 18 years, and it was a fascinating experience to serve on the Defense Committee. And then 6 years into that 18 years I was there, I was on the Budget Committee. I got appointed to it. And I understood the power of the Budget Committee because the power of it shows you everything that happens in the government. So I started writing budgets for America. And the first one came about because I was at a gas station complaining about how dysfunctional the Budget Committee was. And a guy walked around the corner of the tank and he said, if it's so bad, what are you going to do? So I went down to Washington, I gathered my staff, I said, we're going to write a budget for America. And they're like, okay, well there's like 100 people working on this in Washington, in the White House, and maybe another 100 up here, and we've got 6. I said, well, I understand we're overstaffed, but if we stay out of each other's way, we can get this done. So in that year, I offered my first budget, and the vote was 405 no and 30 yes. And of the 30, there were probably 10 that were voted for by Democrats who said, we just didn't want you to be embarrassed, John. And I just worked on this and worked on this and worked on this. And by the way, one time I was offering a budget, and I got invited to this thing called the National Council of State Legislators, and that's where all these people go, these politicians, Republicans and Democrats. So I made a speech about the budget. And I said, oh, the Democrat budget was so horrible, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I know what you're thinking. Well, he's a Republican. Of course he says that. So I launched into a big tirade about the Bush budget. And so the next morning, I go to my office, and I get a call from Dan Quayle. And Quayle says to me, the president is really mad at you. He said, I haven't seen him he is really, really mad about the fact that you badmouthed his proposal. I'm sure you were misquoted. I said, well, I really wasn't, and if you want to have a meeting, I can tell you about it. I get off the phone. So I call my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and I said, sweetie, I don't know how this always happens to me. One minute I'm finding hammers that cost thousands of dollars, and now I've got the president mad at me, and he's really mad at me. So a couple hours later, these flowers get delivered to my office with a little note that says, The president may be mad at you, but I'm mad about you. So, anyway, I just kept working on these things and working and understanding the operations of the government. I became the Budget Committee Chairman in 1995, and then I did enter into negotiations with the Clinton administration, and we arrived at the first balanced budget since man walked on the moon. We paid down the largest amount of the public debt in modern history. The economy was growing, and we had a $5 trillion surplus. And my military reform activities were basically completed, so I decided to leave Washington. So I went out and spent 10 years in the private sector, and I just loved it. I never thought that I would be back in politics. And I can tell you, my wife never thought that I would be back in politics. And then I don't know, you know the story of Jonah? You know the story? Now God told Jonah that you got to go to Nineveh. Now, he didn't want to go to Nineveh. Now, I'm not an expert on Nineveh, but I think it would be like somebody telling you, you got to go and see ISIS. Nineveh was not a place that was very friendly. So Jonah didn't want to go to Nineveh, right? Now, the story goes that he was thrown off a boat and swallowed by a whale. I don't know if he was swallowed by a whale. I don't know if that's an allegory, but it was clearly what happened was he did not want to do what he felt he was called to do, and things didn't go so well. And Jonah finally woke up and he went to Nineveh, and the rest of the story you'll hear on Sunday or some Sunday. But the point is, sometimes when you get a call or you get a feeling about responsibility, and this is for all of you, you know, frankly, I'm here to tell you on this part, this is about your life and my life. Sometimes when you get a call, you got to respond to it. If you can help, if you can lift people, if you can heal, if you can make things better, you got to try your darndest to do it. So I felt that call to run for governor. And, you know, I got into the office at exactly the right time. Things couldn't get any worse, okay? I couldn't screw it up. I mean, there was no way to go but up. And we were almost dead. We lost 350,000 jobs. Our credit was going down the drain. You know, our budget was 20%, almost 20% in the hole in the general revenue fund. And so I took a lot of the lessons that I had learned in Washington to Ohio. And there's a couple of most important parts, and that is when you see a problem, go and fix it. Don't be checking with your friends, and don't be doing polls, and don't be doing focus groups. Go fix the problem. And so I had no interest in any other political job. I just said, okay, we're going to fix this thing. So at the end of my first year, I had a 28% approval. I was the most unpopular governor in America, okay? You got to work hard to be that unpopular. But I'm a change agent. And all the change I want doesn't always happen, but, you know, I'm there to change things, make them better. So 4 years goes by, and we went from $8 billion in the hole to $2 billion in the black. We've cut taxes by $3 billion, the largest of any tax cut in America, and we're going to have at least another $1 billion at the end of this week. We have killed the death tax. We're working on killing death. We haven't figured that out yet. We've helped small businesses, and we've reduced our income taxes, and it's not always easy. Republicans, in a lot of ways, have lost their interest in individual tax cuts. I don't understand it, but it's true. We are, credit-wise, we're really strong, and we're up 360,000 jobs, and Ohio's economy is diversified. Now, what's important about that is we have economic growth. Our wages are growing faster than the national average, but we're not done. And secondly, when we do better, that gives us the opportunity to do things for other people, people that I have been saying live in the shadows. So if you are mentally ill, folks, we have 10,000 people who are mentally ill sitting in our prisons today. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think we should take schizophrenics and people who are bipolar, who get in a scuffle because they hear voices or get confused, do you think we should lock them up in prison? Okay. Well, I agree with you. So we brought a lot of our money back from Washington to begin to treat these people. If we put them in prison, it costs us $22,500 a year. That's arithmetic. How about the morality of it? And so we are bringing aid and comfort to the mentally ill, the drug addicted. 80% of all the people in our prisons have some kind of substance abuse. I knew a big-time politician in Iowa whose mother was addicted to meth. I saw it 17 years ago. Do you know how many people now are successful, God-fearing people whose sons or daughters are heroin addicts today? It's a scourge. And then they go legalize drugs in Colorado. We're going to have it on the ballot in Ohio. This is horrible. And so we're treating these people who are drug addicted, who are in our prisons. Frankly, we don't even want to put the nonviolent ones in prison. We'd rather have them, in a little community setting. When we treat them, the recidivism rate for the drug addicted or the substance abuse folks is 10% go back. Only 10, you know what the national average is? 47%. So we're helping them. The working poor, you know where they go? They go to emergency room. Sicker, more expensive, and we all pay. So now we give them some help so they can have a doctor, so they can stay healthy. It's not only the right thing to do, but it saves us money at the same time. If you have a child, adult child for that matter, who's on the autism spectrum, you're going to get insurance, because it can bankrupt the family. It can destroy a family because of the financial strain. So we're doing that. If you're developmentally disabled, instead of putting you into a sheltered workshop, which some people have to be because their condition is such that they need to be there. But we have many of our developmentally disabled folks now working in Walmart or working in a hospital or working in a restaurant, because they're made in the image of the Lord too. And for our minority friends, we've done a lot. We've reformed the Cleveland Public Schools. The mayor is an African-American Democrat. He's a terrific guy. He came to me and said, we need to fix the schools. Would you help us? I said, okay, where are the hot coals you want me to walk over? And we got it done. We have reformed the criminal justice system. We don't lock everybody up, throw away the key. And by the way, if you do commit a serious crime, okay, we're going to help you to make amends and get out and get a skill and get trained. We just banned the box in Ohio for state employment. What does that mean? And that's not just for our friends in the minority communities, for everybody. You commit a felony, you go apply for a job, you check the box, they take your application, they throw it in the trash can. Now we know we're going to find out what your history is, but we'd rather give you a chance to explain it, like in the third interview, rather than throwing your resume in the trash can on day one. And we make sure that with our friends in the minority community, that if we're going to do state business, they're going to get a piece of it, plain and simple. Because we want to develop entrepreneurship and success. So what happened in Ohio, I did win 86 out of 88 counties, and it was a tremendous win, and I got 26% of the African-American vote and 60% of women and 51% of union households. It happened for two reasons. One, we're doing better economically. People, are doing better. But the second reason is everyone. Everyone hasn't been lifted yet, but our message is we want you to be lifted. We want you to be successful. The big challenge we have today is it's a challenge of the spirit in our country right now. Does the American dream still apply? The American dream, are my kids going to be better than me? And if I am a kid, can I have a great life? Can I realize my potential, all the things I've ever thought about? And that needs to be renewed. We need to renew that spirit in this country. And in my state, I think there's a growing sense of that. Now, at the end of it all, what we do in Ohio, if you came from Mars, and they sent you down here, in a spaceship, go down and take a picture of America, you'd fly over Ohio. Because Ohio is a microcosm of America. we are so much like you and so many other states. Urban, suburban, rural, got it all. Different ethnicities, I mean, all of it is there. So I would tell you this, if you can do it in Ohio, it's sort of like what Frank Sinatra was saying, but I'll change it a little bit. If you can do it in Ohio, you can do it anywhere. Now, I am not yet a candidate for this office. I'm trying to figure that out. And, you know, when I was here 16, 17 years ago, I might get 3 of you to come and hear me. So I'm kind of amazed at how many are here. I'm not giving away canned hams today, just so you know. We're waiting on when you should leave. But at the end of the day, I think we do have a great country. We have challenges around the world. But if we get it right, shift some power back to where we live so we're empowered, get this budget deficit under control, help corporations to invest in plant and equipment so workers can have tools so they can have higher productivity and better wages, grow this economy so young people who go to college have a sense that they can get out and get a job, and so that mom and dad have the hope that when their son or daughter graduate from college, they can get a job, okay? And maybe mom and dad someday can crash on their kid's couch, you know? That people will feel secure about their health care, that we can be safe in this country in our malls when we go shopping, and that we can be safe as Americans and free, at the same time be free. I mean, I think these things can happen, but they're not going to happen by spinning a wheel. They're not going to happen by accident. They're going to happen by somebody that wants to provide really good leadership. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So